Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. We are back. I've been back from vacation for a few days and we're back into the grind today. Let's go and talk about the weather across the country regarding the severe potential today, tomorrow, the tropics, and the heat across the south over the next week, with the return to more severe weather next week. We're going to cover all that in today's video right here. Let's go ahead and begin with the visible satellite and radar. We have a lot of activity across parts of the Midwest this morning, even across parts of the northern plains, as we still had this active upper air pattern across the region today, and that will produce some severe weather across parts of the western plains, across parts of the Midwest, and even down into the mid-Atlantic as well today. And kind of the same deal tomorrow. Just that severe risk across the Midwest has shifted east. We'll talk about that in just a second. But generally, just a kind of a mostly cloudy pattern across parts of the West, Plains, Midwest to the East Coast, but very fair across parts of the South and Northern Great Lakes, much New England as well. So kind of a pretty active story across parts of the country on the visible satellite this morning. Let's go and take a look at the severe outlook. We do have a level 2 out of 5 slight risk across parts of the Midwest today. This is mainly for damaging winds, but it could also be some isolated large hail and tornadoes as well this afternoon and this evening, as we do have an MCV that is sitting out here in Iowa that will sort of promote the severe activity for today. That complex will continue to move off towards the southeast or east-southeast tonight into tomorrow. And then we do have some potential for activity out here across parts of the plains and the mid-Atlantic as well this evening, even across parts of Nevada, California, Arizona, and Utah with that monsoonal activity. For tomorrow, we do have two areas of severe potential within a broader area of lower end chance of severe storms. We have a slight risk out here across parts of the plains, and we have one out here across parts of the Midwest into the southeast and into parts of the Carolinas. Both of these are for damaging winds. There's also a hail risk, and could also see a tornado or two with these storms mainly out here across the eastern states. Let's go ahead and look at the future radar, what the HRRR predicts could happen today and into tonight. This is the projected radar. Let's go to 13Z runs since we have that run fully available. Take a look at the Midwest first, and you're going to notice that this activity this morning should weaken as we go throughout today. But we do have another round of storms that is likely to develop across parts of Iowa this evening. And going into tonight, it could produce some damaging winds, hail. Some of the stronger storms could produce a couple of tornadoes, but I do think the main concern here is going to be damaging winds. Perhaps with the initial discrete storms, we could have that greater tornado threat develop. But I think as storms grow upscale, I think the main concern will be damaging winds and hail. And of course, flooding will be a concern, which we'll talk about in just a second. But I think we do see some threat for flash flooding across parts of Iowa this evening, and even continuing into parts of Illinois and Indiana, where they've already seen plenty of rain, and we'll see more of it today and tonight. Across parts of the plains, we could have a complex of storms develop this afternoon and this evening. Lots of rain across parts of Colorado and Nebraska and Kansas. So that is a lot of rain that we could see tonight and this evening and into tonight. And there could be some flash flooding out here as well across parts of Colorado. Across parts of the western plains this evening. Elsewhere, a lot of activity as well. Again, we have a fairly active upper air pattern, lots of monsoonal moisture across parts of western states. That is what's helping to fuel a lot of this activity across the west, is all that moisture. But they had a pretty active day across parts of Nevada and Utah. In fact, there were a couple of tornado warnings that were issued here in western Nevada, east of Reno, and then a couple of tornado warnings issued southwest of Salt Lake City. So fairly active day yesterday across parts of the Intermountain West. But I do think we see another active day, maybe not like what we saw yesterday, but a lot of scattered showers and storms. Some of them could be on the stronger side, maybe producing damaging winds and hail. Tornado threat should be fairly low with that, like yesterday, but can't rule anything out. And then let's go ahead and look at the extended HRRR run. And then by late tonight into tomorrow morning, some of the activity wanes, but still a lot of rain across parts of the Midwest. I mean, this is just ludicrous amounts of rain that we're expected to see across parts of the region, and that will continue off into tomorrow afternoon. We do see another round of strong storms that develops across parts of the Midwest tomorrow. And then for the severe threat tomorrow, we'll zoom back out, show both regions. We do see some scattered, perhaps widespread severe storms across parts of the western plains, and then more so scattered activity across parts of the Midwest, Appalachians, and to the southeast. I think for most of the Midwest, we could see more of a clustery type storm where storms are clustered together, and then across part of the southeast, we see more of a just sort of widely scattered storm mode, kind of a typical summertime pattern developing across parts of the southeast. There has been mention that we could see some upscale growth occur with these across parts of the southeast, but we'll have to see how the guidance evolves over the next over the next day. This is tomorrow. We can't really guess a couple of days, but we'll see how this guidance evolves throughout the day and into tomorrow. So here is the flash flood risk for today. This is put up by the Weather Prediction Center. We do have a level 3 to 4 moderate risk across parts of Iowa, Illinois, northern Missouri, and this is due to just all the rain that has fallen already. So the soils are already very saturated, and what rain will fall on top of that. So whenever you have these very saturated soils, you get a greater flood threat, as there's not as much room to absorb all that water. So think of it like a towel, where you're drying something with a towel, but that towel is already wet. It can't soak up any more water. That's kind of situation with the ground here. The ground is already very saturated. More on top of that ground cannot absorb as much water. So that is where we do see that elevated flood threat across parts of the Midwest today. Even across parts of Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska, we do have a slight risk out there. Could see a lot of rain there, maybe some flooding as well. And then the broader flood risk across parts of the Midwest into the Appalachians as well. We'll take a look at the modeled precip off the HRRR. We'll take this out to, let's go to the 12Z run. We'll just run this out all the way to the end of the valid period tomorrow morning. And here's where the HRRR predicts the most of the rain could fall. A lot of rain across parts of eastern Iowa and western Illinois, including areas like Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, the Quad Cities, Burlington, Galesburg, even near Peoria and areas like that. So if that should happen, where we see perhaps up to 6 inches of rainfall in some areas, there could be some considerable flash flooding develop across parts of Iowa and Illinois tonight. Even going into tomorrow, I think that flood threat does continue for some areas, as we do see more rain across parts of Illinois and Indiana, perhaps into western Ohio, where they've already seen plenty of rain over the past few days. So hopefully this region does see a bit of a break, and I think we do see a couple of days where we do see some break in the activity, but I do think next week we do return to a more active pattern. We'll talk about that in just a second. For other areas across parts of the country, again, there's that slight risk out there. Could see some areas with 1 to 2 inches of rain. Some areas could see up to 3 inches, but it could produce some isolated scattered flash flooding across parts of the Western Plains tonight with that activity. Elsewhere, again, a lot of the, in comparison as far as just raw rain amounts, not super impressive, but remember that these areas are generally dry. But it is summertime. We do have a lot of monsoon and moisture. We have enough upper air lift to support a lot of activity across parts of the West. So any areas where we do see some heavier downpours and training storms, that could be an area where we do see some isolated flash flooding. Fairly active wet pattern for much of the Intermountain West, Northern Plains as well. So that's story for the flooding. Now let's take a look at the tropics. We do have several waves out here and a couple of systems out in the Pacific. We do have Tropical Storm Lala out there southeast of Hawaii, expected to become a hurricane tomorrow, potentially either get close to or make landfall in the Big Island of Hawaii. There's a hurricane warning in effect for the Big Island with tropical storm watches out for other parts of Hawaii. And that's something that we're going to watch. A lot of heavy rain, especially for the higher terrain, and strong winds expected for parts of Hawaii over the next 36 to 48 hours. We also have another tropical storm out here, Tropical Storm Hernan out here. We'll watch this one, see if it could come close to Hawaii or remain to the south, or perhaps weaken as well. It does look like this could be a shorter-lived tropical system. Conditions are not as favorable to maintain Hernan. And then we have a couple more waves where we could see some tropical development over the next 7 days. Chances are low, but they are still there. In the Atlantic, despite the El Nino, we do have a couple of waves that had the potential to develop, but are fairly modest. And the thing about El Nino is that it doesn't completely shut down the Atlantic, but generally you do see less activity as there is more wind shear. In some areas you can see some cooler waters as well. But we are in a period where that shear is letting up a little bit. And we do have some potential to see some tropical activity in the main development region. 92L over here, This is 92L out here across parts of, if I can click on it, there we go. That did have a high probability of development, but that has been lowered due to the more hostile conditions across parts of the Caribbean. So with that being said, I think this wave fizzles out in the Caribbean, doesn't become much of a problem. But 94L is a little bit different. It could avoid some of that stronger shear and could potentially develop into a tropical system sometime next week. Some of the guidance does suggest that the system could strengthen and maybe become a tropical storm. So whether or not it becomes Dolly or not, we don't know yet. As far as impacts to the U.S., very uncertain. It's way too early to tell. The most likely scenario is that either system weakens as it enters a more hostile environment north of the Caribbean, or it recurves out into the open Atlantic. But we'll watch over the next 7 to 10 days, see if that northwest track does continue. But right now, I wouldn't be concerned as far as the potential for tropical storm impacts across the U.S. at this time. But of course, we'll continue to watch it. If anything changes, we'll let you know. But for now, there is no need for panic or concern at this time. The system does have a, let's see if I can click on it. There was a way to click on it, but I believe it has a 50% chance of tropical cyclone development over the next 7 days. Its probabilities could go higher, could go lower over the next few days. Alright, bringing it back home, let's talk about the extended future. Talk about over the next few days and the next week or so. So here's the upper air pattern through this remainder of this week into this weekend, and you can see we will have a ridge of high pressure develop across the south. That's what's going to bring all of the heat across the south this weekend into early next week. Many areas are going to see temperatures in the 100s, some areas in the mid 100s, with heat indices between 105 and 110. We'll talk about temperatures in just a second. We'll look at that in a moment. But it's going to be very hot across the south over the next few days, even going into next week as well. And I do think that going into tomorrow and even the Sunday, we do see a little bit of a break. The flow aloft becomes a little more diffuse. We are sort of in between waves, as this wave up here will begin to depart. That ridge will continue to grow in size, and we see another wave develop a little bit off screen here. We do see another wave that may develop across Western Canada late this week and into early next week. So we're kind of in between systems on Sunday, perhaps into Monday as well. But I do think that by either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, we do see that active upper air pattern return. We do see some stronger flow moving into the Midwest and Northern Plains. We could see more severe weather across parts of those regions, and perhaps maybe something similar to what we saw this week, or earlier this week, with multiple thunderstorm complexes tracking across parts of the Midwest. Perhaps some more organized severe weather in store for sometime early to mid next week. In fact, here we go, dang. If the GFS is correct next Tuesday, this is a fairly potent wave for August. Now again, this is the GFS's one model, not guaranteed this is going to happen, but if we do see a stronger wave within the broader flow aloft, that could support more organized, potentially significant severe weather, assuming that does overlap with some robust instability across the Midwest. So we'll continue to watch that. We'll look at the European just to give an idea of what we are looking at. And yeah, so fairly broad flow. Not really much activity within the flow Monday, even in Tuesday, but we do have that one wave developing from the Pacific and Northwest. That could support some more organized severe weather. In fact, even the European is kind of suggesting a stronger wave as well. Not as potent, a little more long wave rather than short wave, but still shows that system moving into the Midwest on Wednesdays. So we'll continue to monitor, see if that does hold. But I do think, regardless, whether we have this sort of potent wave or not, I do think we enter into more active pattern in terms of severe weather early to mid next week, perhaps persisting into late next week. But I don't think the Midwest is done for a little while. A couple of days of break in between, but I do think the active pattern will continue even into late August as well. Perhaps some more activity even going into the following weekend. This is the 22nd of August, maybe some more activity, but if we do see that sort of weaker, broader troughing develop, that will quiet things down a little bit and cool things down as well. Even for the south as well, as we do see some of that troughing digging into the south as well. Some continued activity across parts of the Northwest, with that heat shifting off towards back towards the Four Corners and Central Plains next weekend. So we'll see how that pans out. Obviously, going to long range, things are much more uncertain. Predictability is much lower, but we will continue to monitor the pattern over the next few days. Let's go ahead and close the video off with the forecast temperatures. We'll look at the blend of models on the GFS. And here we go. So yeah, very hot across the south, many areas in the 90s to 100s, but today will not be the hottest day of this sequence. Going into tonight, many areas, in fact, I think some areas are going to struggle to get below 80 across the plains, even across parts of the south. But going into tomorrow, kind of a similar story. Still very hot across the south, even across parts of the southeast. Temperatures in the mid to upper 90s. I think it's possible that areas like Jackson, Memphis, Birmingham, Nashville, perhaps hotter than Miami. On Saturday, and that will probably be the case through much of this week and into early next week. Even going into Sunday, still going to be the similar story across much of the south. Some of that heat creeping up to the Midwest as well. Many areas could see temperatures in the 90s across parts of the Midwest, mainly south of I-70. Going into Monday, I think this is where things are going to be the hottest across much of the southeast. Many areas seeing temps in the 90s to 100s. A little bit cooler across parts of the plains potentially on Monday. In fact, I think a lot of areas Monday night into Tuesday are going to struggle to get below 80. I think these temperatures could be a little bit cooler than reality for Tuesday mornings. So going to be very uncomfortable over the next few days. Still very hot. And Tuesday, similar story as well. Many areas in the 100s and at least upper 90s. Heat indices where it is more moist could be between 105 and 110. Now, I do think that across parts of the plains, if the area is dry, if dew points remain in the 50s and 60s, heat indices could be a little bit lower. They may not be as extreme. But any areas where we do see dew points in the 60s, 70s, perhaps some areas even near 80, we will see those heat indices rise above 105, perhaps some areas over 110 degrees. So dangerous heat, regardless whether the air is drier or more moist. I think we do see some dangerous heat across parts of the south this weekend and into early next week. Now the question is, do we see a break from this heat? I think we will eventually see a break, but I think it's going to be a little while. It may not be till the end of August where we do see some noticeable relief. One thing we can hope for if we are looking for relief is we do see more troughing dig down to the south in late August. That will be our first opportunity to see a real break from the heat. But until then, as long as we see ridging across parts of the south and that jet stream continuing to stay to the north, it's just going to continue to be hot. But if we see that change, we will see some relief from the heat. So that will do it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. We'll dive into longer range. We'll dive into what we think for September in the next video. Get subscribed so you don't see any of our, so you don't miss any of our future content. And I will see you guys in the next video.